Okay, it's going to be a review of WWE Judgment Day 2007. The plan is to, try to wrap up this Judgment Day series before the month of May is over. Yeah, I'm pretty picky about, sticking to the exact month. So only a couple days left of May, maybe like 72 to 85 hours. So I'm going to try to finish this, and then there'll definitely be a list of the top 25 Judgment Day matches with the Judgment Day 2001 theme. But we'll see if we could do it. But yeah, well, let's get right down to it. We're going to go all the way back to May 20th, 2007. This is in Randy Orton's hometown of St. Louis, Missouri. This is where they decided to give Randy Orton the monster push, down the road for SummerSlam. Due to all the injuries and, guys dropping like flies. We have an attendance here of 10,500 fans in attendance. The Scott Trade Center in St. Louis. And, it's Raw, SmackDown, and ECW. So you got Jerry Lawler, Jim Ross, Joey Styles, JBL, Michael Cole, and Taz. A fully stacked lineup on commentary. We get a pay-per-view buy rate of 242,000 buys. And then the theme of the pay-per-view, the theme song, it's actually Ozzy Osbourne with I Don't Want to Stop. This was actually Brent Albright's theme in Ring of Honor, so it was a pretty popular song. But when I'm looking at the theme songs of Judgment Day, they didn't use themes like a lot of different years. I don't think they used themes for 2003 and 2004. I think, I could be wrong about this, but I think in 2005 they used John Cena's theme with Freddie Fox, the Bad Man. I think that was the theme. I could be wrong about that, but 2002's theme was pretty damn good, but the 2001 theme was incredible. I always thought that was like the best, WWE production theme. Before they started using the licensed music, they used to have those production themes, but the Judgment Day one was fucking incredible, and you'll hear it, at the end of the month in a couple days. But on the pay-per-view poster, you actually have Kane, who's not on the actual show, but he's actually in a dark match here against William Regal. So if you wanted to know why Kane wasn't on the show, I have no idea why, but he was in the dark match. First match of the night, we have Ric Flair taking on Carlito. Almost 16 minutes. Man, they got a lot of time out there. It kind of dragged for a little bit, but it was still pretty good. This had more of a story than they showcased here. If anyone remembers, Carlito was actually dating the red hot Tori Wilson at the time. And he was leaving the show early, and Flair went up to him and said, "Why are you leaving?" And he questioned his heart and questioned his desire. I can't do the promo justice, but if anybody remembers it, it's definitely worth going to see. And it was awesome too, because Billy Donovan, the coach of the Florida Gators, he actually used this to motivate his team, and they actually won back-to-back championships in 2007. That's when they had Al Horford and, oh man, who was the other guy that they had? They had Joakim Noah on that team, the Florida team. Florida actually won the championship this year too. But Billy Donovan, who coaches the Bulls now, actually used this to motivate the team. So it's pretty damn cool. I mean, it was that good. I mean, if you're going to use it to motivate a team before a championship, it has to be good. So Flair actually wins this match over Carlito. This is like the death sentence for Carlito, though. I think this was like the nail in the coffin, to job the Flair at this stage. But the match is pretty good, though. I think Flair looked a little bit old. Obviously, he's past his prime. I kind of feel bad that Flair doesn't have the record anymore of 16 times. I kind of do, but I understand. I understand it. But when you look at Flair in this match, dirtiest player in the game, I think the ring psychology was good. He did some good counters to Carlito's, knee breaker. Ultimately, he makes Carlito tap out to the figure four. But yeah, I mean, Flair looked old, but he, in a good way, like he looked old school, and the ring psychology was still good. He still had like a lot of ability. And even though he's a babyface, he's still the dirtiest player in the game. So I actually enjoyed the opener. It wasn't that bad. But, for a Flair match at this stage, if you want to argue that it was a little bit tedious and a little bit long, I wouldn't disagree with that. A lot of stuff actually got time on this show because the main event featured the great Khali. All right, next up we have the ECW, championship match. This is a 3-on-1 handicap match. We got Bobby Lashley taking on Vince and Shane McMahon and Umaga. Vince is actually the ECW champion. I stated this before, but a lot of people thought this was a shot at ECW. I think more than anything, they really wanted Lashley to get over. I think Vince was confident in himself that he could, bring some eyeballs to the brand of ECW. You had the whole thing with the ECW originals, going up against the new breed, and Vince was taking shots at RVD and the original ECW guys. So it accomplished a lot of different things. I think when you look back at Vince being ECW champion, it created a lot of buzz. I mean, if you look into the crowd, there was a lot of like Vince signs, a lot of different. Vince McMahon driven signs from Vince's God to Vince's killing ECW. Just a lot of polarizing, reactions to Vince. And say what you want about Vince. I know a lot of guys, don't have a positive opinion of him for a lot of different reasons, which is fine. But I think one of the things that you can't ignore about Vince is, his ability to keep people engaged, his ability to make things interesting, the facial expressions. And I think he's good at that. And, the proof is in the pudding, too. I mean, look at how successful the company got, when they were pushing Austin and when they did the Vince feud. So, I think this is what Vince is good at. But I think a big blow, though, for Lashley to walk out of the company. I don't think this gets talked about enough. So Lashley actually goes over here. He actually pinned Shane McMahon with a power slam. He's pretty dominant. There's really no offense from any of these guys. It's not the Backlash match where they ganged up on Lashley. It's a totally different format. They just give Lashley the ECW title. But yeah, I think Lashley, something happened with Crystal. Crystal Marshall is actually on the show. She interviews Edge. Edge is like staring at her cleavage and everything, playing up to the rated R superstar thing. But the bottom line is Crystal was upset about something, and then Lashley left. And, they invested a lot in Lashley. So, everyone talks about how Brock fucked the company. I just think Lashley leaving was a big blow to the company, and a big blow for Lashley as well. They didn't bring him back for a while. I mean, it took well over 10 years until Lashley came back. But, they're really just trying to build him up for Cena at this point. Next up, we have the match of the night. This is CM Punk taking on Elijah Burke. Elijah Burke is actually CM Punk's least favorite opponent. Basically called him I think he called him a prima donna. I'm pretty sure about that. And then Elijah Burke responded back. He's like, well, look at who the prima donna is now after, the incident with AEW and everything like that. So obviously the two guys, didn't get along. But this is a situation where if the two guys didn't like each other, it definitely resulted in some good matches. I always enjoyed their matches. Their match at Unforgiven was disappointing, compared to this. But I really enjoyed this match. And believe it or not, this match sold me on Joe versus Punk too. It really did, because I was just like, man, if this is what Punk can do, like I'm willing to give Ring of Honor a chance. And because this match delivered, and the feeling of the company overall, it felt like it really wasn't for me anymore. So I felt like I had to gravitate towards Ring of Honor, definitely. But yeah, huge match for these two guys. I don't know why they didn't get along. I mean, Elijah Burke did bring up there's a really bad botch. If you look up on YouTube, there's several stiff shots that Punk reacted to where he said, man, that fucking hurt. So you have a lot of, bickering between the two guys. But hey, I thought the match was good. And I think, the storyline going into it, what was really good as well. They didn't show it here on the actual feed, but there's actually a DVD extra where they talk about the new breed with actually Punk actually joining the new breed and then screwing them over. And then, after Punk screws Elijah over, Punk comes out and says, I don't need the new breed because you guys remind me of high school, like bullies in high school that I had to deal with. So, but yeah, when I look back at that new breed package, I say to myself, this really was not that bad. Like you had Monty Brown as Marcus Corvan. You had Kevin Thorne with the porn star, Shelly Martinez. I was going to say Missy Martinez, something like that. So you had like a good stable, a gothic stable featuring a lot of, black talent that could really go, that was athletic. And I like the core there. For whatever reason, it just kind of, disintegrated before our eyes. But I think at this time, the ECW brand was kind of, was a little bit interesting, to be completely honest with you. But on to the match. I think it was good stuff. This is really one of the first times where Punk, was able to, showcase what he could do on a pay-per-view. I mean, really, it's really the first time he really got time. I was going to say the Chavo match, but the Chavo matches were actually the next year. But yeah, good stuff. Punk is actually selling the ribs. So even though he's doing a lot of selling, he's still putting his body on the line. He's using his body as a weapon. He busted out a springboard drop kick, and then he followed it up with a torpedo out of the ring. So one of the issues with this show that really got my attention is every time they were doing a lot of big spots, you know, they would actually show like kids' reaction in the crowd. They were targeting, this is going to sound horrible, but they were actually targeting kids for their reactions. So definitely at this time, even though it's not PG yet, you could definitely tell the seeds are planted for them, you know, to make the target audience kids, which definitely does make sense when you think about it. But at the same time, back to the match though. Yeah, Punk was great here, and Elijah Burke was good too. I thought these guys clicked well. I thought, you know, it was a little bit slow in some parts, and some of the fans were chanting for JBL. But that's really the only negative I could say about it though. You know, Elijah Burke's offense, man, he actually did the Elijah Express, which is actually the running knees into the turnbuckle when Punk was tied up there, and then Elijah actually busted out the lariat, which I think he called it the Elijah. Oh man, he had another name for it too. The Elijah Impact. No, that's definitely wrong. But yeah, he busted that out. And then eventually, you know, Punk countered that the second time and into the go to sleep, which was a good finish. But yeah, I thought these two guys click well. And Punk, for whatever reason, like this is really the closest he's ever looked like to Ring of Honor Punk. I definitely felt like that. And yeah, I just thought this was good stuff. Now there are some people I remember. I think Bill and Doug. I think it was Doug. You know, if you were rooting against the WWE, you could argue that it really wasn't that good. You know, Punk is really not living up to the hype. Blah 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 blah. I mean, you could argue that it's not like it was an amazing match. But to me, I thought it was eye-opening. I thought they got time. I thought they delivered. You know, I think Elijah Burke is really underrated. You know, maybe, I don't know, for whatever reason, Punk had an issue with him, but I think he's a hell of an athlete. I think he was actually a boxer. I mean, he really was not bad. I wish WWE and TNA let him kind of work out the kinks a little bit more when you look back on it. Next up, we have Randy Orton taking on Shawn Michaels. They go almost about 5 minutes here, but there's a lot of lag. So at this time, Orton is, you know, on like a revenge tour. Edge had made the move to SmackDown. So I think Rated RKO, as you know, it was just kind of, you know, exiled. But yeah, Randy is, you know, going on a tear here. The reason is you got so many guys with injuries, and then Edge is moving over that they had to start building up Randy for John Cena, which was never really fully explored at this time. And I don't remember what the injury to Shawn Michaels was at this particular time. You know, Shawn Michaels had to get knee surgery. It wasn't like anything, you know, major. I think it was just more of a knee cleanup. Then at the same time, he could have his off season. He took off the whole summer, and you know, a little bit of the fall as well. And he wouldn't return. I believe he returned, in the beginning of October to get his revenge on Randy Orton. But yeah, in this match, you see Shawn selling the concussion backstage with the trainer, and I mean, he tries to find some of that fighting spirit, you know, with the super kick, and he's kind of hugging on to the referee, and you know, Randy hits him with the RKO, and Randy starts doing the big punt at this time, and you know, Shawn's still kind of selling that. And after the match is over, Rebecca comes out. Not Rebecca Michaels. No one calls her Rebecca Michaels, but I think Rebecca Hickenbottom, which is actually Shawn's real name. So she comes out, and I mean, they just try to make Randy Orton out to be like a monster here. It's as simple as that. But yeah, it's really, you can't really rate this thing fairly. It's more of something that they could have done on Raw. But hey, you know, I think between Raw and the pay-per-view, Shawn just realized that his knee was in bad shape. All right, next up we have the Hardys taking on Lance, Cade, and Trevor Murdoch. A pretty good match, you know, pretty underrated match. I think the show actually has some decent stuff on it. I'm going to say this. I think Flair and Carlito, it's decent. Punk and Elijah Burke is good. You know, the Hardys match is good. Edge and Batista is pretty good. You know, I think MVP and Benoit is good. And, you know, for the great Khali, the main event is good too. It's really, really funny, you know, watching this back. Like, this is really the show that I think turned a lot of people off. My brother's friend who came to the pay-per-view parties, his name was actually Greg Marino. He had a famous line after the pay-per-view was over. He just looks at me. He's like, man, are they drugging people? Like why are we even watching this shit? So that's what kind of, brought back some memories there. But I got to say, man, the Hardy match is good. The Hardys defended tag team titles against Cade and Murdoch, who brought, a stiffness, ruthless, not pretty, but just fundamentally sound, just good old school tag team wrestling here. I mean, it didn't have like the energy that the Backlash match had, where the Hardys are like, getting the whole arena to clap for them simultaneously. It didn't have that going for it. But yeah, the girls still love Jeff Hardy. I mean, they were going crazy for the Hardys here. There were some hot tags, and Cole's commentary was pretty good. He really put over Jeff Hardy well. He was like, Jeff is able to like invent offense on the fly, and Jeff actually took, he actually tried to do that swanton, and he actually just crashed and burned on the mat. That was a pretty nasty bump. I thought Cade and Murdoch looked good though. Trevor with the stiff boot. I thought Lance Cade had some nice spine busters. There was a really good tag to Matt Hardy. Eventually, Matt hit the twist of fate. He was able to, shoulder block Trevor Murdoch out of the ring, and then Jeff hits the swanton for the victory. It's not a great match, but it's good. It's a solid Hardys match. It's not really, when I think about it now, it's really not that much of a drop off, compared to that Backlash opener. I mean, the Backlash match is definitely better. It's definitely more memorable, but this is still good. All right, next up we have Edge versus Batista for the world title, the SmackDown title. Okay, so Batista actually lost the world title to Undertaker at WrestleMania, which is well documented, and they had the Backlash Last Man Standing match, which ended in a draw, and then I believe Taker actually got hurt. I think he tore his biceps or his triceps, and then they had the steel cage match, and then Mark Henry comes out and injures Taker. And then, lo and behold, Edge actually cashes in the Money in the Bank to win the world title. But before you even get to that, though, Edge actually defeated Mr. Kennedy, to win the Money in the Bank. So Kennedy, once again, he had a hematoma, which was misdiagnosed, and he had to relinquish the Money in the Bank, which one of the biggest missteps of Kennedy's career. I think what everybody can learn from that situation is you just go to multiple doctors. Obviously, it was an injury that was reported to be more serious than it actually was. It was just a hematoma, which is just a buildup of blood that you could visually see, but there wasn't really any full tear. But hey, Edge is able to celebrate here. He cuts a promo with Crystal Marshall where he's staring at her tits, but at the same time, he's able to articulate that he's on the hottest run in the history of the business, that he's done in 2 weeks what, most people haven't done their whole careers. So you have that going on. But yeah, Edge makes the jump over the SmackDown. Well, when I think of it now, I think Edge deserves a lot of credit, for being a team player. You remember Kurt Angle was a little bit deflated, when Vince, made him go back over to SmackDown because he was finally getting his feet wet on Raw. Originally I think he asked Shawn Michaels, to jump over to SmackDown, but you know how Shawn is. He's like, I'm a Raw guy. I got to stay with my bud, Triple H, that type of thing. So, I remember Edge said one time, when he was out with the injury, before they actually brought him over to Raw in 2004, they asked him, when you come back, do you want to be with Raw or SmackDown? And he's just like, I just really want to be where I'm needed. So I think that was Edge's mentality, that he just wanted to, fit in where he was going to be best utilized. So Edge had no problem jumping to SmackDown. I mean, it feels like a little bit much. I mean, the first two Money in the Bank cash-ins were Edge cash-ins, which kind of blended in well with the ultimate opportunist, but he takes on Batista here. I think, I remember Batista's documentary. The thought process here was that, it'll be easier to get the fans on Batista's side, with him chasing, the championship. Very similar to the Cena situation with Great Khali, which we'll talk about in a second. But yeah, I just think there was definitely a burnout factor with Batista. Ironically, he's really one of the few guys that was able to stay healthy, which is ironic because Batista's probably more injury prone than any of these guys that went down. in the summer of 2007. So on to the match. And before Edge comes out, they show the Ozzy Osbourne, theme song with Edge, doing all the cash-ins and bragging about being champion. And then Batista comes out in the suit, and he's just like, I want my title back. That championship is mine. And then Edge gets all paranoid. So it's really not a great story. This is just kind of, setting the tone for the rest of the matches. It's probably one of the weakest Edge Batista matches. I think for the most part, their matches are underrated. This one really never got going. Batista's he actually is injured here, but it's not an injury that like kept him out of the pay-per-views or had him on the sidelines. He has his knees all taped up. Edge is able to kind of Irish whip the knee into the steel steps. So Batista is really selling the knee. And later on in the match, Edge actually goes to work on the arms. He's putting, Batista in arm bars, rest holds. And JBL's really putting over Edge as, someone that's a great strategist to take away the knees and take away the arms. So it's not like the most entertaining match I think they've ever had. It's not bad, though. Like, this is better than I thought it was going to be. There's actually interception with, Batista spearing Edge after Edge tries to do the spear. And then after that, it felt like Batista was getting the fans on his side. It felt like he was building momentum. He's setting up for the Batista bomb. Edge counters. Then Batista hits a spine buster. And then he comes down on the kneecap. And then he just the knee just buckles and Edge does a schoolboy. And he, steals the victory, escapes with the championship. It's really a clean finish when you really think about it. But it was a good strategy from Edge. It kind of set the tone for the rest of the matches. But I thought it was solid. It's definitely not worth checking out. It's not great, but it kind of jump started the trilogy. With Edge jumping the SmackDown. So it is what it is. Next up, we have the WWE United States Championship, the best 2 out of 3 falls match. We got Chris Benoit, taking on MVP. It only goes under 15 minutes. It's actually shorter than I thought it was. All right, so let me say this about the match. Out of all the MVP Benoit matches, it's easily the most disappointing. You could argue that it's bad if you're going to just judge it from like crowd reaction and the WWE style with getting fans invested. You could argue that. I actually enjoyed it, though. I think if this match had happened in Bloodsport or, Battle Arts, the strategy and the ring psychology and just the, some of the, what do I want to say here? The work from MVP, was great. I mean, it really, really was. I mean, it really put MVP over well. I think if you go back to the, the first couple of matches they had, Benoit won at WrestleMania. He won at Backlash. He won by, submission at Backlash. And then eventually, MVP, just finally was able to kind of, scout and detect, Benoit's offense. So anytime Benoit was going for a crossface or for a sharpshooter, he was able to kind of take him down with a leg lock. During the match, though, anytime MVP had, some of the rest holds on, a lot of the fans started chanting, "This is boring." So it definitely, didn't have a great reaction. There really wasn't a lot of offense from Benoit here. I don't even know if he busted out a German. I mean, there might have been like one clothesline where he started to get the fans into it. But overall, it was really, it just booked to benefit MVP more than anything. So, yeah, I think it had great strategy. I thought you saw some, good takedowns from MVP. I mean, it was good. I got to say, it was really, really good stuff. I think the highlight of the match, too, is, Benoit actually did counter, one of MVP's moves into an electric chair. And then MVP just counters the electric chair into the playmaker for the first fall, which was good. And, the second fall, it just featured, Montel just going to work on the leg and then ultimately just locking up Benoit in a series of small packages. The second one actually gets the job done and MVP beats Benoit 2 falls in a row. All right, in terms of the MVP and Benoit relationship, from what's out there for everybody to hear, is that MVP is a huge fan of Benoit. Thought he was a great person. Thought Benoit was very giving. Let him stay at his house, believe it or not. And he said he just learned a lot from him. And he felt like he got better. And you can see it too. Yeah, I think MVP got better. You know, technically, he got better and better, you know, as the series went on. That's what Benoit does. I think he makes guys better. You can see the same thing with Angle. When, you know, this is the spring of 2007. When Benoit and Angle feuded in the spring of 2001, you can noticeably tell Angle got better each and every one of those matches, you know, going into the summertime. He really did. You know, that's what Benoit does. His style begins to rub off on different guys. So, but yeah, this is Chris Benoit's last pay-per-view match. It's actually Judgment Day 2007. Sadly, you know, Benoit did not make the appearance at Vengeance against Punk, which we'll talk about next month. It's kind of symbolic. I mean, it really is to see Benoit's last match where he loses like this. I think the pay-per-view as a whole, I think it's definitely like a foreshadowing of like a lot of negativity and a lot of negative things to come. But more so than anything, I think it's this Benoit match. I mean, the way he loses here, it's almost borderline disrespectful. It's almost borderline insulting. That maybe it did kind of fuck up Benoit's you know, psyche after the match is over. And I know the ECW thing, I've stated before, you know, maybe Benoit going to ECW like had him all fucked up mentally, and that's why everything happened. It's not why everything happened, but I think it's important to note that you know, you don't know like what's going on in people's minds. You don't know what Nancy and Chris, you know, might have been fighting about. You know, in most cases, you know, marriages are, a lot of it is like over money. So, you know, if it's a situation here, especially with the WWE, where if you're getting pushed, you know, Kurt Angle was very open that when he went to ECW, Vince actually told him you're going to be making less money. And maybe it's the same thing here, where Vince went up to Benoit and said you're going to be making less money. And maybe Nancy, you know, was in tune, you know, to what the demotion was going to be about. So everything comes into play. You know, I brought up the OJ thing several times. When I look back on it now, I think the CTE was more of a factor with Benoit than OJ. I think with OJ, I just think a lot of it, not necessarily jealousy, but if you know about, you know, what was going on behind the scenes with Nicole and, you know, who she was dating and, you know, some of the stuff that she revealed, you know, in the book that was written about her, I think a lot of it was just, you know, the way she made OJ feel, you know, I think a lot of it had to do with that. You know, this is definitely a different situation than that. But hey, this is Chris Benoit's last match, and he loses to MVP. Great performance from MVP, though. But it's a heel performance, and it's a performance that I think put over MVP in a huge way. Okay, and on to the main event. The main event is John Cena defending the WWE Championship against the great Khali. So in the storyline here, Khali just snaps. You know, he's taking out the whole roster. I think he actually, you know, powerbombed Shawn Michaels through a table. I think that's part of the concussion angle there. And then he's just going on a tirade, and, you know, he gets Cena's attention, and then he actually hijacks the title from Cena. You have the interpreter there. Khali actually cut a promo on the show in Indian. He was able to get out the words Judgment Day. But, you know, the interpreter was okay, but I don't think you could really judge him as a manager, though. You know, I mean, an interpreter is not there to show charisma and personality. The Yankees have an interpreter, too, because a lot of the guys on the team speak Spanish. But, you know, his job is just to interpret what's being said. Their job is really not to show a lot of emotion or charisma. So, but hey, you know, Khali was able to, you know, do some crazy stuff, you know, on the mic here. I don't think anybody could really understand it. In the video package was pretty cool, though. They kind of tied the Judgment Day thing into like Khali and the end of the world with religion, and, you know, you get to see all these, you know, religious-based stuff with people, and I would say crosses. You know, I didn't do a good job of explaining it, but yeah, they use a lot of like religion, like in the video package here, you know, Revelations, the end of the world, Judgment Day, you've seen those two things, tied in time and time again over the years, especially with Khali's potential and path of destruction. It definitely made sense to, give him the title shot on Judgment Day. But yeah, with Cena and Khali actually hijacks the title. So I remember at the time, Triple H, I don't know if Triple H was even, back, he probably just came back behind the scenes at this time. I think it was reported that he had said that it would be more beneficial to the company to have Cena, chase the champion instead of the other way around. And I definitely think it worked for this situation here with Khali. So when you look at the Cena and Khali match, it's very noticeable. This is really the first time where, I would say the first time since Vengeance 2005, the first pay-per-view where the fans are, 100% behind Cena. There's no let's go Cena, let's go Khali. Nobody was rooting for the great Khali here. And you could definitely notice, especially compared to WrestleMania 22, it's a lot more families, it's a lot more kids. They really have a ton of kids' reactions here. And it's funny because it's not PG quite yet. It's kind of similar to WrestleMania 7, around that time, where the target audience is kids, but you're still doing controversial shit, like Sergeant Slaughter burning the flag or the Hulkamania, shirt. And then, Vince McMahon, blowing up in the limousine. You're still doing a lot of controversial shit, even though the main target audience is kids. Because I think at the time, they realized that a lot of the guys that watch WWE, they're going to watch no matter what. And they're really not supporting the company. I think at this time they noticed, a lot of the older fans, they're going to be watching this shit illegally on, streams. So they're not going to be supporting the company. We need to kind of target, families and kids, people that are going to come to the arena and buy multiple tickets. So I think at that time they kind of changed the business philosophy, and that's why they really went, full board with Cena. You could see guys like Angle and Benoit being demoted. So I think it all kind of ties into that. But hey, on the positive side, I think the match is pretty good. I think Cena probably gave Khali his best match. I think for 8 minutes and 15 seconds, it doesn't even go 10 minutes. I think Cena really bumped well for Khali. The fans are really into this every step of the way. Cena did a great job here of just making Khali look like a monster. I really think he did. He actually bumped really well for the spinning heel kick. Khali really was kind of using the vice grip. There really wasn't a lot of pretty offense from Khali, but whatever offense he did hit, Cena actually bumped pretty well for it. I mean, it's a young version of Cena. This is really, I gotta say, this is really Cena's prime. I mean, I thought he looked really, really good here. I mean, it's not the best version of Cena ever. I think he probably got a little bit better after this, but in terms of cardio and bumping, I think this is probably the best version of Cena that we got. I mean, the match is really simple. It's really a simple story. It's really Superman, going up against the Incredible Hulk. It's that type of thing. It's really catered to kids. It's really not going to satisfy your craving if you really want to see a lot of competition in wrestling. But it was pretty cool how Cena did it, though. He actually hit a shoulder block on Khali, and Khali actually got tied up on the ropes. That was pretty cool. And then eventually, as the match progressed, Khali wanted to take the steel steps apart, and Cena beats him to the punch, and he actually drop kicks the steel steps, and it actually hurts Khali. When Khali tries to get back into the ring, Cena goes for the leg drop off the top rope, and then he puts on the STFU to make him choke out. He couldn't get Khali up for the FU, the attitude adjustment. He just couldn't do it. I think he did it 2 weeks later at One Night Stand. Off the stage or something like that. So this match kind of sets that match up. It looked like Khali's foot might have been underneath the ropes. They didn't show it here, but there's a possibility maybe on Raw that they kind of used this to set up a rematch with Khali's foot, kind of being on the ropes. Very similar to Austin and Angle from Unforgiven 2001, where Austin had his hand on the ring apron. That type of thing. But who knows? I don't know if they went in that direction. Cena makes Khali tap. I got to say, everybody hates Khali. I know 2007 probably gets more shit than any other year because Khali was champion and, because of all the injuries. But in terms of who had the best match ever with Khali, this might have been the most watchable. I think it might have been. I think this is definitely better than Triple H Khali, probably better than Undertaker Khali. Definitely better than Batista Khali. I mean, this was definitely easy to digest, even though it really wasn't for everybody. Though it's more of a match that's catered to kids. And after the match was over, yeah, that dude said, what are they drugging these people? But it was working. This is the first time where the Cena push like really felt like it was working in terms of getting that monster babyface reaction. They finally were able to do it with Khali. But at the same time, it was the kind of show and it's the kind of match that's kind of alienate the fan base. After this show, I said to myself, man, I got to start watching Ring of Honor. This shit just ain't, hitting for me. But, Punk had the great match here, but still, I felt like I needed to, look above and beyond, to really fulfill like what we're watching for. But yeah, I think a show like this, I think it's good for guys or for kids that grew up, or for kids that really still, were into like superheroes. Like that's who it's really designed for. But eventually, I just feel like eventually you got to snap out of it. Like I was a huge Superman fan as a kid, but I think, eventually you need to kind of, grow out of that. But, the bottom line is, they booked John Cena like a superhero here, and I guess it pretty much worked to a degree, because I think the show did pretty well. But definitely, I think Judgment Day 2007, it's really the first pay-per-view where it's the start of the decline. I think the Khali Cena thing is only part of the problem. I think the bigger problem is guys just not staying healthy. I think the wellness policy. I just think injury is more of the bigger problem, and guys leaving the company is more of the bigger issue than John Cena at the time. I think if anything, Cena proved that he's a tremendous asset here more than anything. So I'll just say that. But that's Judgment Day 2007. I don't think the show is that bad. I mean, I've always had it as one of my worst or least favorite pay-per-views ever, because like I kind of realized whatever momentum they got in the beginning of 2007, which was really a good run, I just felt like they lost it at this time. So, but hey, that's Judgment Day 2007, and I'm out.